Take the I-87 north from Queensbury, Vermont, then the 28 up through North Creek. Keep going, if you want to take the route that I did. Keep going, and you'll pass right through the town that doesn't exist on any map. My headlights probed the first of the ramshackle buildings throughout the smoky dusk. This was no isolated farmhouse or wild hermit hiding from the world. A real town, with shy street signs peeking out from tangled vines and ivy looming apartment buildings that might have been abandoned for years, and ramshackle houses that looked as though they were grown from the earth rather than built from it. The place was materializing around me, appearing so suddenly that I couldn't imagine I had been blind to it a moment before. I slowed to a stop as an old man crawled this way across the street. He was huddled against the cold, pausing to leer through my windshield and breathe a frosty fog in my direction. I was growing impatient and was about to honk when he staggered up to the car, clattering his knuckles upon my window. "Why are you here?" Perhaps it was just his frail voice breaking in the cold wind, but it seemed as though the strain of panic lay just below the surface. A depressed man, wrought by anxious doubt, screaming at himself in the mirror before pulling a tight smile for the rest of the world to see. That's what I was looking at outside my window. "I don't even know where here is," I answered him. "Is there a hotel where I can get a room for the night?" "No hotels." The man was turning in a slow circle. I followed his gaze, noticing a growing number of faces framed by faded curtains, watching us from the surrounding buildings. "A motel then? I'm not picky." "No motels, no inns, no beds, no breakfasts. Nobody stays here." More eyes, more faces watching us. Old men standing on the street corner not bothering to disguise their gaping stares. Doors opening to reveal ancient women who might as well have been direct descendants of prunes. Wrinkled hands wringing together, bleary eyes straining through their curtains, through their spectacles, not a soul younger than 60, and all staring with the horrid fascination of one witnessing a brutal car crash. My nerves were fireworks, exploding with the undefined tension in the air. I nodded curtly and began to roll up the window, when old hands shot through the opening, grabbing me by the collar. "Take me with you. Don't leave me here, please," he begged. Real tears swelled up from the sunken wells of his eyes. I shoved him back on instinct. The window slid shut, but he wasted no time in clutching the door handle and rattling it with all his might. I would have thought it was dementia if I weren't the heavy silence of those eyes. "Please, you don't know what it's like. Don't go, don't go, don't go." And on, uselessly pounding his weak flesh upon the metal door, crumpling to the ground beside my car and wailing like an insolent child. I shifted into drive and put my foot on the gas, but a sudden sharp whistle gave me pause. A policeman had appeared beside me, cropped grey hair and piercing black eyes like a man who remembers the worst of a war with warm nostalgia. He roughly pulled the pleading man away from my car before rapping a quick, authoritative burst of knocks on my window. I rolled down the glass once more, keeping an eye on the discarded man who still trembled with silent, heaving sobs. "Was this man giving you trouble?" the policeman asked. I rapidly shook my head. "I was just asking for directions, that's all I said." "Just stay on this road. It'll take you right through town and you'll be on your way," the policeman said. "Actually, I was looking for a place to—" "This road is the one you want," he repeated. "There's nothing else here for you, understand?" "Yes, sir." The black eyes turned away, and I was able to roll my window up once more. The rest of the eyes, those peeking from buildings or glaring from the street, they remained fixed on the scene. I was too thankful to be driving again, but I didn't even make it a block before a scream made me slam to another halt. In the open glow of a warm streetlight, unmasked before dozens of eyes, I watched a policeman's baton fall for a second time, then a third, and a fourth. Each wet, bludgeoning thump accompanied by shrieks of agony. The man who had first addressed me was being beaten into a pulp in the middle of the street. This zealous baton alternated with quick, vicious kicks from the policeman's steel-toed car boots. It wasn't the screams which haunted me though. It was a cold, impassive silence from the policeman. No warning, no threat, not even sadistic satisfaction. It was just another day for him, another duty. Those black eyes turned away from the writhing form on the ground. A second later, all the eyes from the entire town seemed to be on me. I stomped the pedal, tearing through the stop sign, not fast enough to avoid hearing another gut-wrenching scream echo from behind me. I couldn't just leave though. It's my fault what happened. I should have let him in my car immediately, but there was nothing left but to hope I wasn't too late. I circled around the block, and by the time I got back, the eyes had all turned away. Curtains were drawn tight again, doors were closed. The old man was the only one left still, moaning and whimpering in the street where he had been left. I stopped the car and wasted no time in leaping out. His decrepit frame was so emaciated that I had no trouble lifting him into the back seat. He was still alive, barely. Although there was a catching rattle in his chest when he breathed, it looked like a few of his ribs had caved in. One of his eyes floated open for a moment. Please, he had split blood between words. Don't stop, no matter what you see. Don't stop until the last house is gone. I had no intention of staying any longer than I had to. The first curtains were just flitting open again, but I was already back on the road. I braced myself against the impending sound of sirens and the inevitable chase that never came. I didn't see a single other car in the road as I glided through the eerie twilight. The only scenes of light was a regular beat of windows. At each block, a new set would snap open with mechanical precision. Old heads like cuckoo birds sprang out in unison. Next to the windows from the previous block would slam shut, continuing the steady rhythm like the incessant pounding of drums. The rhythm didn't change, block after block, but gradually the faces peering out did. The further I went, the older the inhabitants became, shrinking and decaying into loose folds of yellow skin. This was to give way, until presently I found myself being watched by faces so ravaged by time that I could clearly see bleached bone and hollow sockets turning as I sped down the road. Even the buildings here were in various stages of collapse and calamitous ruin, even though I was driving through the inexplorable span of years. The houses were just beginning to thin, and give way to the wholesome shelter of trees. I glanced behind at my passenger. The shock forced me to slam my foot on the brakes, barely avoiding swerving off the road entirely. The gradual decay of the town was mirrored on my companion. Sagging flesh had ripped from his frame entirely, and the solemn skull behind was precipitously balanced on a heap of splintered and broken bones, ancient wounds which had never healed. Don't stop, not yet. Words like trickle of dust escaped the skull, but I'd already stopped, and the longer I ruminated on that unforgettable fact, the longer I remained frozen in static terror of what was to come. The rhythm like the pounding of drums had returned, windows, doors, opening and slamming, then opening again to unleash the remaining denizens that time had forgot, lurching, shambling, and had sprung into life like blasphemous vitality. The inhabitants of the Charnel realm were closing around my car. Ragged skin fluttered in an unfelt breeze, and white talons of bones raked the ground to pull them ever closer. Stares fixated upon me, and always that infernal drumming which mounted into the crescendo of a macabre hymn. Take us with you, a lone shriek at first, but quickly taken up by the rest. Don't leave us here. The engine lamented by efforts to start the car again, a tense rattle and a sickening crunch like the mashing of rusted machinery. Had it aged with my passenger as well? Had I? There was no time to stop and think. I leapt into the open night, brisk air leaving in my lungs that scrambled upon the hills towards the woods, drumming, ferocious and wind and intense, yet retaining this unerring rhythm. I had the oddest sensation that I was listening to my own pulse as I pushed for maybe harder and faster. I could hear the drumming keep pace with my racing heart. It didn't matter though. Nothing mattered except for last lonely house which I was swiftly growing level with, and the figure which was emerging to greet me, the policeman, baton in hand, grey-haired and stern, and living as I had seen him last. The baton was tapping along with impatient drums as I drew level. I could feel the hesitancy in my pursuers. "Still looking for directions?" he asked, a coy smile playing around the corner of his mouth. "No, sir. I wanted to say so much more, but that was all the breath I had left. Just passing through, are you, sir? Need a ride?" "Need a ride?" His smile was growing. I didn't like how many teeth it showed. The drums had stopped. The crowd had stopped. My car started somewhere behind me in the darkness. A flash of confusion passed the policeman's face. I liked that considerably more than the teeth. "Don't you dare." But I was already running, back down the hill, back towards my car, the pounding of a policeman's feet behind me. But it was so quiet compared to the resounding drums a moment before. The uncertain crowd parted at the policeman's thundering approach, but I was practically flying now. My car never went below 10 miles per hour, but the passenger door was open and I launched myself inside. The slam of the door behind me was the first beating of resuming drums. All at once the crowd was screaming again, drowning out the shouts and the threats of the pursuing policeman. Mounting and mounting back into the hellish capopathy, and then just as swiftly dwindling back to nothing, the car celebrated its triumph. The old man in the car, or what was left of him, he drove me to safety that night. It's almost morning now and we still haven't stopped, and just as soon as I work up the courage I'm going to have a whole lot of questions to ask him. I think I'll start by asking the name of that town. My school never existed. That's the easiest way I can put it. It simply vanished from all records and almost all memories. I could spend hours looking and not find it. I wasn't sure if I had dreamt the place or if I was going crazy. Until I found somebody going through the same experience for privacy reasons. I'm not using her real name, but I'll call her Sarah. We went to where we remember the school being, and it's still there. However, nobody ever seemed to see it. As when we spoke about the school, people looked at us as if we had gone mad. I decided to go to the doors while Sarah looked through the windows. The doors were locked and the lights were off. Nothing strange yet. I went to find Sarah but found something. One room had the lights on and students sitting there as if it were in a lesson. I watched. There was no teacher, but they still asked questions and sat in silence until they seemed to know the answer. What truly creeped me out was when they all turned in unison to look at me. They all seemed to be silently screaming before the lights went out and Sarah came round. She told me I looked like I'd seen a ghost. After I told her what I saw, she said that the entire place seemed abandoned. The next week, what I had seen through that window haunted me in my dreams. Each time, it had been from somebody else's view. First my view from the window, then next right from a student. The third night seemed to be the perspective of a teacher. Next, from multiple passing students. Fifth and sixth times it was just another student. However, the seventh was from events, and this was the only time the deafening screams had been audible. I called Sarah but could reach her. I tried every type of communication I could to reach her, even going to her house. Sarah's parents opened the house when they asked. They told me they had never had a child. I went back by myself and hunted around till the way in. The door was locked and windows wouldn't break. I shuddered. The area around the school became cold. Nobody seemed to notice me attempting to break into the building. I noticed a note sitting in the grass. I picked it up and saw that it was a badly drawn picture of a bunch of open-mouthed children. I think they may be screaming. I ran after that. Something just didn't feel safe. I'm not sure what's happening, but I think I might be erased from existence soon. I'm not sure if I should go back to the school or try to avoid it. But this is a warning. Do not try to track down Lightfield High. It doesn't exist. Do not try to track down Lightfield High. or you might not exist.